World War III, the stage is set. Trump, Maduro, America versus the world. Now, this is pretty much going into how the world leaders are speaking out against America's attack. And what America did actually was illegal according to the UN Charter. And this is going to lead us into heavier times of World War III, you know. And before I proceed, I want to open up with a precept really quick. This will be Revelation chapter 11, verse 14. The second woe is past, and behold, the third woe cometh quickly. And that third woe is talking about America, not America, I'm sorry, it's talking about World War III. The word woe in the Bible means destruction. All right. And I'm going to read from 4 articles. I'm not going to read the whole article at all. It's just certain key points that the United States made, Russia makes, China makes, and even some African nations made, and even the UN leader makes. Okay. So without further ado, I'm going to give all honor, glory, and praises to the Most High Yahawah and His only begotten Son, YAHAWASHI, whom the world ignorantly called Jesus, because the letter J in the English alphabet did not exist 2,000 years ago. Double honors to my elders at Great Millstone. Single honors to the elect. Peace and bless to the 1/3, and to the confusion of faces in the 4 corners of the earth. Shalom. Let's get into it. This is from Fox News. Trump's Maduro takedown resets the global chessboard and reasserts American power. And the reason why that hit so hard and why I opened it up, because China, Russia, and Iran have economic ties to Venezuela, hence buying oil from them. I mentioned in one of my previous videos that America had a petrodollar oil deal with the Saudi Arabians going back to 1973 all the way up until now. Last year, 2024, in June or July, they never re-signed that deal. And that deal that deal forced Saudi Arabia to sell its own oil using America dollars. So America's always been pimping in the Middle East in that oil, that black gold, for over 5 decades. Now, they never re-signed that deal again, not saying that they tanked it, but now since Saudi Arabia has not signed that deal, that allows them to sell their oil in any other country's currency. And once again, it's been since 2024, June or July, they have not re-signed that deal. So why do you think all of a sudden, Trump, they have gone in and physically removed the president of a foreign country? Well, because the president of the foreign country is Maduro in Venezuela, and they hold the world's reserve for oil. You really think it's about drugs now? How about the Sackler family here in America? They had to pay out over $500 million where they were lying to doctors and saying this vaccine is fine, this and that is fine, and they had to divvy out all that money. How come y'all didn't lock them up? But that's another story. So going to this article, I'm going to bring out something known as the Monroe Doctrine. Okay. Fourth, this is, I'm like I said, I'm getting straight to the point. I'm going to leave all these links to the articles in the description box. Fourth, President Trump has reestablished the Monroe Doctrine, which forbids foreign powers from operating in the Western Hemisphere. 200 years ago, President James Monroe warned European powers against interfering in the Americas. You know, this is pretty much going back into 1776, the America's dependency from the UK. Independency, I should say, from the UK. 60 years ago, President John F. Kennedy used the Monroe Doctrine to keep Soviet missiles out of Cuba. 40 years ago, President Ronald Reagan used it to stop the Soviet Union from establishing military bases in the Caribbean. The Monroe Doctrine was a foundational principle of American foreign policy, establishing the Western Hemisphere as an American zone of influence. All right, so that was something that they had created for over, it's been here for 200 years, pretty much saying that Eastern or foreign countries outside of the Western Hemisphere, let's understand how the Western Hemisphere has been occupied since the Renaissance through rape, rob, and murder, the transatlantic slave trade. So they're pretty much saying, hey, we run this over here in the Western Hemisphere. Y'all see how we got it. Don't interfere. But here's the quagmire. Economic ties have been place within this country that you're now saying you're going to subdue, that you're going to run. All you're going to do is implement your own democratic elective official, right? So now, not Trump, and China, and Iran now have an issue with that. Okay, let me bring out another preset really quick. This is I thought I had it. Bear with me for a moment. Matter of fact, I'm gonna just go right here. This is where I was at. Revelation 12:12. Therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe, mean destruction, to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea. For the devil, you know who that is? That's Esau. John 8:44. You are your father, the devil. You was a murderer from the beginning and a liar. That's all you've done since you've been here. And the Western Hemisphere from 1492, you've been lying, deceiving, and cheating, and just being deceitful in everything you do. The word devil means slanderer and a liar. There you are, the physical embodiment of the devil. Yes, you are. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, of the devil, for the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he have but a short time. And you can just tell by the actions of America, or really these Edomites. They call themselves Caucasians, but they're biblically Edomites. Look at how they're moving and grooving nowadays. They just don't care. They're being blatant with it. It's out in the open, right? But anyway, so pretty much that Monroe Act. Matter of fact, let me finish it. The Obama administration abandoned the Monroe Act, the Monroe Doctrine. Secretary of State John Kerry unilaterally declared it dead. The Biden administration also abandoned the Monroe Doctrine by looking the other way. See, you see how they use the words by looking the other way, while Russia, China, and Iran established footholds in several countries. Didn't I say that? By sending the American Armada into the Caribbean, President Trump reinstated the Monroe Doctrine and declared, quote, American dominance in the Western Hemisphere will never be questioned, unquote, again. But look at the countries that you're invading. Like, come on, man, stop it. Because Venezuela was actually buying weapons. This is from another article from the Telegraph, but they wanted me to pay. I wasn't paying for it. They were actually buying weapons and other military equipment and technology from them. And America went inside and just subjugated and subdued all of that. Now to the next article. Like I said, I don't want to make this long. Can the U.S. legally arrest a sitting foreign president? Let's get right into it. Here we go. The Russian foreign minister has said the U.S. attacks are an act of armed aggression against Venezuela. This is deeply concerning and condemnable. The pretexts used to justify such actions are unfounded. It's a bunch of bullshit that they do, and they know it's illegal. Was this an act of force under the UN Charter? Here we go. Article 2.4 of the United Nations Charter says, all members shall refrain in their international relations from the threat or use of force against the territorial integrity or political independence of any state or in any other manner inconsistent with the purposes of the United Nations. Russia's framing of the U.S.-Venezuela intervention as a condemnable act of armed aggression is at least an affirmation of its own belief in the existence of international law. All this goddamn word jargon. Pretty much the UN is saying like this: it's supposed to be we, on a collective agreement. We all come to the collective agreement and say, listen, this is what's happening in this country. Look at what they're doing to the people. Do we all agree that we need to intervene to help these people in this humanitarian action? Yes, we do. Okay, then let's go. United States did not go to the table and discuss any matter with no country. They just went in there, and for months they've been putting pretty much their military forces around that area for months, and then they finally went in for the kill. But once again, metaphorically, meaning that they captured them. Understand? Because who has a foothold also there? Russia, China, and Iran. And that goes back to what? The BRICS, which is also in opposition to the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, which is being dominated right now by the dollar. But the BRICS is starting a new monetary system that's going to challenge that economically and internationally. People, not every war is fought with blood. Every war can be fought also with resources, people, and money. Anyway, so this is what I want to get to. The U.S. actions are only lawful if supported by a resolution from the UN Security Council. If the U.S. is acting in self-defense, no, it was only offense. It was offensive. Or this is often overlooked if there was consent by the lawful government of Venezuela to the intervention, i.e., when America just dropped some bombs or did an attack on Nigeria, the actual government asked for intervention. Understand what I'm saying? They could be in a state of emergency or something like that, or a humanitarian crisis. So what they did pretty much is damn illegal. Yes, it's illegal. U.S. attack on Venezuela death certificate for UN will trigger global arms race. Right. People are like, wait a minute, they can just go in there and take him and his wife. People look like, you know what these dictators are doing? They're putting themselves in Maduro's shoes. Like, damn, so you just gonna take that man and his wife? Like, then you gonna take me and my wife too? Right? That's how they think. On Sunday, Trump warned that the U.S. could launch a second military strike if remaining members of the Maduro government did not cooperate with efforts to get Venezuela fixed. Look at your own home front. Sweep around your front door before you go sweeping around somebody else's front door. UN Chief Antonio Guterres says he was deeply alarmed by the U.S. operation and that it had potential worrying implications for the region. He is deeply concerned that the rules of international law have not been respected. Yeah, right. Like America really respects. Get out of here. I'm in the belly of the beast. These motherfuckers don't care. All right. So anyways, as UN officials stressed the need for countries to respect international law, the Security Council called for an emergency meeting on Monday at Colombia's request. Meanwhile, they remind me of SpongeBob. Chinese damn, excuse me, I'm getting excited. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman Lin Yan, if I'm not mistaken, said China supported the meeting and backed the Security Council in playing its due role in accordance with its mandate. And mandate is not something that's voluntarily. That's something that has to be executed or addressed. China's ready to work with the international community to firmly uphold the UN Charter. So yeah, they got an issue with it. All right. China make huge demand to U.S. as Trump catches Venezuela leader. All right, so this is in another article. I got one more after this, and I'm gonna close out. Like I said, I don't want to make this long, but they are speaking. China calls for emergency UN meeting over U.S. strikes. The sovereignty and security of all countries shall be fully protected under international law. All countries. Going on, he says, we have never believed that any country can act as the world's police, nor do we accept that any nation can claim to be the world's judge. And when I saw that, I said, man, I thought about Jeremiah 50. This is Jeremiah chapter 50, verse 22. A sound of battle is in the land and of great destruction. How was the hammer of the whole earth cut asunder and broken? How was Babylon become a desolation among the nations? The whole hammer, think about it. The judge uses what? The gavel, small mallet, a wooden hammer. Order in the court. You know how they do it? Order in the court. Knocking on the, wood, right? That's what America wants to do. They wants to have order in the court, and the world is their court. But they're like, hold on, wait a minute. We're judges too. We're dictators too. We have our own sovereignty too. Who are you? Right? That's what they're saying. Verse 24, I have laid a snare for thee, and thou art also taken, O Babylon, and thou was not aware, thou art found and also caught, because thou hast striven against the Lord. When you read in the Bible, you must understand the context of what's being read. This is talking about America today. The mystery whore Babylon, not ancient Babylon, the mystery whore Babylon, this is America. Because when you read Psalms 137 and 7 on down, King David also refers to Edom as the daughter of Babylon. So when you're reading a certain context of the word Babylon and Chaldea and that's referring to America today. But the Lord had the prophets use ancient biblical geographics. Understand? Just like when the scripture says, an arrow shall be shot from one end of the earth, That's not literally an arrow. It's talking about a missile because it's talking about prophecy. Like the elder apostle Kabar says, you must be a visionary when you're reading the Bible. Everything is not literal. That's why it's spiritual. Like a pastor at my job really thought Lazarus was burning in hell for real. It's crazy. Anyways, going back, Jeremiah chapter 50, verse, he's a pastor, verse 25. The Lord hath opened his armory and hath brought forth the weapons of his indignation. For this is the work of the land, God of hosts in the land of the Chaldeans. Come against her from the utmost border, open her storehouses, cast her up as heaps, and destroy her utterly. Let nothing of her be left. And the way America's moving, it's not far-fetched that America will be destroyed off the face of the earth, because that's biblical prophecy. That lake of fire is referring to America. It's not a place you go to after you die. All right. And one more, just another country. Ham has something to say. Semaphore. African Union expresses grave concern over U.S. raid of Venezuela. So like I said, it was just all these foreign countries are pretty much saying they're against it. So this is pretty much like World War III heating up. You know when you put water in a pot and you let it you cut the pot up, you go high, you cut it on high, and you know how you walk away for like a couple minutes and you come back and you start to see them little bubbles at the bottom. Yeah, that's what's happening right now. Them bubbles at the bottom are starting to rise to the top. So with that being said, I truly pray y'all was edifying, fed, stay in the spirit. Don't fear it, just endure it. Ask for forgiveness, pray without ceasing. Stay humble, remain diligent. Kwame Allah, Wafla Babal, Shalom.